The coronavirus crisis now, and India's Prime Minister has expressed concern over the rapid spread of COVID-19 through rural areas where healthcare facilities are limited. Narendra Modi says his government is doing everything it can to contain the virus. His administrations face heavy criticism for being poorly prepared and allowing large political rallies. The government says 2 billion vaccines could be available by the end of the year, but some states aren't waiting and they're looking to secure doses from overseas. Now, demand for overseas donations in India is higher than ever, but it's being blocked by a sweeping change to a decades-old law governing foreign aid. An amendment made last year has created legal and administrative hurdles limiting donations made by international charities to local groups. The government says it strengthens accountability and it wants foreign charities to donate to government-controlled funds. But it's being criticized for its lack of transparency. More than a dozen Indian non-profit groups say their work has been paralyzed by the law change. They've complained that it diverts scarce resources away from relief efforts during the pandemic. Well, let's speak to Ted Hart about this. He's the president and CEO at CAF America, which is a global organization that assists donors making foreign contributions. He's via Skype from Washington. Thank you very much for being with us on Aljazeera. Tell us more first about how this legislation has caused delays to COVID relief aid in India. What sort of challenges there've been in delivering aid?
Good morning, Foley, and thank you so much for inviting me to speak to your audience today. Of course, we're concerned about the ability for philanthropic funds to get to their intended end point, and that is to help people in India. And our heart goes out to everyone in India that is facing this new wave of COVID. There are concerns about the Indian government's change in the law September of last year for India's Foreign Contributions Regulations Act, or the FCRA law. However, there are ways to be compliant, and our focus for our donors is to always make sure that they are regulatory compliant. So, rather than spending our time complaining about the new hurdles, quite honestly, most every government in the world has hurdles to manage and provide transparency to the use of philanthropic funds.
So what sort of challenges, again, have these changes to the law made?
Yeah, so one of the biggest changes, which has caused concern, is that prior to the change in the law, a single charity in India could serve as an intermediary, if you will, and have those funds regranted to other charities, maybe smaller charities throughout the country. And that was a model that worked, but it was a model that clearly the change in the law is one that the Indian government felt it had some concerns about. So now it is against the law for any charity to re-grant the funds. But it's not unlike some other governments that require the charity that receives the funds to actually administer the use of the funds. And so, again, there are ways to be compliant within the law, and certainly there are higher hurdles, but it's not unprecedented.
Right. As the COVID crisis is deepening in India, there are concerns now that smaller non-profit organizations in rural parts of the country will suffer the most without the support of funding from larger groups. Are there any measures that you can take to work around some of these hurdles?
Certainly there are, and CAF America has a long history of experience in directly validating charities in all parts of the country. And that's part of the answer, is that funds can be directed to charities, smaller charities in all parts of the country. It's also possible for larger charities to take on the work themselves and to contract with smaller charities to take on that work, but not to re-grant it. And what that does is make the larger charity fully responsible for the transparency, the regulation, and the use of those funds.
Ted Hart, thank you very much for talking to us about this.
Thank you.